Hey guys! Today I'm going to be talking about Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, The Sword of Summer by Rick Riordan. This book follows Magnus Chase, who on his 16th birthday learns that his father is a god. And not just any kind of god, a Norse god. And we follow him as he tries to navigate the Norse world while trying to find his father's sword. Going into this book, I really didn't know what to expect because I really didn't know anything about Norse mythology. So I read the little Hotel Valhalla's Guide to the Norse World, which was actually a lot of help, and I found myself remembering a lot of stuff that I learned when I was a little kid, but not enough to actually understand what was going on without getting confused at several points. I was actually very nervous to read this book because, like I said, I didn't know a lot about Norse mythology, but I had no reason to be nervous because Rick Riordan introduced Norse mythology in such a way that it was kind of confusing because Norse mythology itself is confusing, but I learned a whole lot and it didn't really feel like I was learning. Like all of Rick Riordan's books, this book had a large amount of humor. It was sarcastic humor, which is my favorite kind of humor. But each of the characters also have a darkness in them, which just makes you connect to them on a more emotional level. I think one of my favorite things about all of Rick Riordan's books is the hilarious chapter titles. My favorite one being, Hearthstone passes out even more than Jason Grace, though I have no idea who that is. It's completely true, and Magnus, I think, actually passed out more than Hearthstone did. I'm not going to say anything else about this book because I think it's like all of Rick Riordan's books. It's just best to go in blind and not expecting much. That way they'll just blow you away. I do, however, recommend that you read both the Percy Jackson series and the Heroes of Olympus series before you pick up this book series. Not that there are spoilers for those two series in this book, but there are a few hidden jokes that you won't get unless you read those two series. So goodbye, people who haven't read the book. And for those of you who have, let's discuss. So right off the bat, when we are introduced to Magnus, we learn that he has been living on the streets of Boston for 2 years after his mother's death, which was really depressing, and I didn't understand why he wasn't living with some of the family members because we know that Annabeth is his cousin. It's like, why wouldn't he go live with them if his mother died? And then we learned that his mother told him not to trust his uncle Randolph, and they'd just been cut off from the family, so he just decided to live on his own without seeking any help. And we also had to wonder why Annabeth and her dad hadn't done something about this. But this is answered for us fairly quickly because Annabeth and her father show up, and we learn that they had no clue that Magnus' mother had died, and they're out looking for him. And when Magnus finds out about this, he's wondering why his uncle is searching for him now of all times. So, being the reasonable human being that he is, he decides to break into his uncle's house, where Randolph catches him and we get a little bit of a lowdown about Norse mythology. Then we get to the bridge and the battle with Surt. To me, this battle was more humorous than anything. I mean, we have Blitz, who has a duck crossing sign and is trying to hit Surt. And then we have Hearth, who has this rubber bow and arrow set, and he hits Magnus in the tail end. I mean, I know they were trying to help, but I couldn't help laughing at them. They would have been better just knocking Magnus out and dragging him off the bridge. And once Magnus knows that he's going to die, he's not going to go down without a fight. And the sword kind of works on its own and impales Surt as they go over the bridge. And I love how this chapter ends, and then I die. The end. So we're not even 50 pages in and our main character is already dead. And this is one of the reasons I didn't want to read the series, not because the main character was dead, but because I kept hearing that the main character was immortal. And I was like, was Magnus Chase offered to become a god and we are going to go through his immortal adventures? And that didn't really interest me much, so I was like, maybe I just won't read the series right now. But Hammer of Thor came out and I saw everybody's excitement for it and I was like, okay, I gotta give the books a shot. So I read it and I was like, I'm so happy that Magnus is dead, and that sounds bad, but I'd rather him be dead and immortal in Valhalla than immortal. It sounds bad any way I think of it, but that's just it. I mean, I'd rather him be immortally normal than an immortal god. I don't know. But speaking of Valhalla, this place, I wouldn't want to go to Volkswagen. I think that's what it's called. I think I'll just call it Volkswagen like Magnus does, because really there's so many words that I mispronounced in this series. It was driving me crazy. The pronunciation guide did not help very much at all. So if I mispronounce any words in this, I apologize. I'm only human. I'm not a demigod. Even if I was a demigod, as you can tell with Magnus, even they have trouble with this language. Back to Valhalla. If I had to choose between there and Volkswagen, whatever it's called, I'd probably choose Valhalla because it seems like there's more to do. Although I would probably feel claustrophobic because there's like way too many people, and you know, like Magnus said, you kind of need a GPS to get around that place. And I really didn't understand how this all worked with the Underworld. It's like, is the Norse mythology Underworld kind of like separate from the Greek and Roman mythology Underworld? Or are they like combined but there's like separate sections of it? Or how does this work? I gave myself such a headache trying to fit these two mythologies together, because the books, I mean, they do intertwine. I mean, Annabeth is in this, so obviously the Greek and Roman gods are part of Midgard. But are they only part of Midgard, or do they spread out to the 9 worlds as well? I'm going under the assumption that they're just a part of Midgard. But that doesn't explain how the Valkyries and Ren and Hela, I don't know what her name is, the half zombie lady, they get souls just like Hades does, but they're getting them from Midgard, which is where the Greeks and Roman gods are. How does that work? I mean, do they flip a coin to decide, okay, if it's heads, they go to the Underworld and Greek and Roman mythology, or if it's tails, do they go to the 3 choices in the Norse mythology world? I don't understand how all of that works. It gave me such a headache, and I've talked about it too long, so let's move on to something else. I forgot my point about Valhalla. Valhalla, yes, that's it. I love how to be chosen for Valhalla. You have to die a very spontaneous death, and you have to die with a weapon in your hands. And Magnus isn't the only one that's died, so we get to see a few little bloopers on Valkyrie Vision. And Magnus's is just like bloopers, because that's all we get to see is the funny, humiliating parts of his fight, which was pretty much half the fight, but still, it didn't reflect well on him at all. And it didn't reflect good on Sam either, because they got her expelled from the Valkyries. And at this point, I was really questioning Sam because she was told to go get Magnus specifically. And that just had me questioning her, especially when we see her later on when Magnus goes to see his own dead body. Never thought I'd have to say that in a book talk. And she knocked out Hearth, which led to us having another little conversation with Annabeth, which kind of turned out a little awkward because Magnus was standing by his own dead body, but it's Annabeth. She's seen it all. And I just love how Magnus takes everything in stride. So no matter how crazy things got, Magnus was just like, yeah, this is completely normal. Everybody's used to this crap by now. So at this point, I was very suspicious of Sam, but I didn't think she was working for Loki. I didn't really think about who she could have been working for, but I just knew she wasn't on Loki's side. I was, however, very suspicious about who Hearth and Blitz were working for. Didn't expect it to be Mimiri, I think that's how you say his name. You know, the bodiless guy. The guy just a head. Creepy. I mean, we find out that they really have no choice but to work for him, but at the same time, it's like, I don't trust this Mimiri guy. It's like, I don't know what he's up to, but I don't trust him. But after this, I did trust Hearth and Blitz because it's like they're being forced to do what they do through him, so them personally, I don't have a problem with. And then while trying to get food, which, by the way, why can dead people eat and sleep and use the bathroom? I don't understand that logic at all. But let's roll with it. They run into this giant shapeshifter who basically threatens Magnus with re-death if he doesn't get him this immortal apple. And Magnus has to swear on his troth to get him this golden apple before he'll give him information about the sword. Which I don't know what a troth is, but I hope we find out because it's seriously bothering me. So after he swears this oath, they go to find Ren, which I don't know what she's the goddess of, but Magnus compares her to a bag lady, which, I don't know, seemed pretty accurate from everything I was hearing. But Magnus barters with Ren and ends up getting the sword and the apple. And I think this is the first time we've actually encountered a god or goddess and was able to get what we want without having to go on a meaningless side quest to get something for them in return. And the next morning, while they're trying to escape, they encounter Gunilla, her 2 lieutenants, and Magnus's hallmates. Thankfully, Hearth works some of his magic. They escape to the World Tree just in time, but sadly, that's where they get split up. Magnus and Blitz get taken to Volkswagen, and Sam and Hearth are sadly stuck in the World Tree. And this is where we get to meet Freya, the goddess of love. And so far, she's my favorite goddess in the Norse world. Because even though she's a little condescending, I mean, she's a lot more sympathetic and loving to her children than I've seen all the other gods and goddesses. And of course, they're gonna have to do something for her before she'll do anything for them. So she's sending them to Nidvalur, the dwarf world, to get her a pair of earrings. And this may sound like nothing, but her son has to encounter the person who disgraced and pretty much caused the death of his father. I mean, she does give them a bag of red gold tears, which is the currency in the Norse world, to pay for the earrings and the string that is going to bind Fairness Wolf up again. But Junior, the dwarf that makes the rope, isn't content to get a bag full of red gold just for earrings and, you know, a rope that can bind anything and never be broken. No, he wants to cause Blitz public humiliation and then kill him. Which this dwarven contest, I mean, I understand that Sam was messing with Junior's projects the entire time, but I don't even see why the judging was necessary considering Junior only had 2 items and both of them were busted. I mean, at least Blitz had 3 items and all of them worked. And I like it how Blitz doesn't want to kill Junior. He just really wants him to acknowledge that his father was right the whole time. And during our time in Nidvalur, we get to learn a lot about how Blitz and Hearth met, and then we also get to learn a little bit about Sam, like how she can shapeshift into pretty much anything. And not long after that, when we're in Jotunheim, I'm not sure how to say the giant world's name, but once they get to the giant world, we get to learn a little more about Hearth and his past with his parents and why he's into magic. And this is just one of the more serious parts of the book because Hearth had such a horrible life. I mean, I would like to find his parents and just go all dwarf on them. That doesn't sound very threatening, but read the book. Dwarves can be threatening. I'm short enough to be a dwarf, apparently, because dwarves, like giants and elves, are all kinds of different shapes and sizes. It doesn't make sense. It's like I'm used to when giants are described, they're like 50 foot tall, no less than 20 foot. In this, they can be just normal sized humans, and it kind of throws me off completely. And this is also the point where we learn the Sword of Summer can talk. And he likes the name Jack, so that's what we're going to be calling him for the rest of the series. Jack's a really interesting character. You wouldn't think of a sword as a character, but he is his own character. I mean, he talks, he flies, he fights by himself, because really Magnus does like 0 fighting ever. And he's just really interesting, especially in the end when we're at Fenris Wolf's Island, because at that point he's fighting with Magnus. He wants to cut the ropes. He's destined to cut those ropes. And then he's also destined to go to Surt, so both of them show up on this island and the sword is being pulled between both forces. And I'm not exactly sure why, just because he's destined to do these things, why if he's his own character, if he has his own soul, why he can't fight it, but maybe that'll come in later on in the series. I don't know. I hope it does. And I hope that down the line, Jack and Magnus become so close that Jack can fight the pull towards Surt and the need to release a dangerous wolf on humanity. And Magnus has showed some really interesting powers up to this point. I mean, we've learned he's temperature controlled, so he's always like in the middle, never too hot, never too cold. And he can use elf magic. He can heal people, and I guess if he uses too much of his power to heal people, he starts to glow. Not sure what all that's about. And he can also disarm people, which was something amazing that we got to see like right off the bat after he dies. But it happens again on the island, but it seems like it's on a bigger scale. And he consecrates the island in the name of Frey. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but it seems Jack does, and it seems like whatever actually happened, it took a lot of strength and power to do it. But this, on top of tying up Fenris and making a portal into Muspelia to send certain the rest of his fire giants back where they belong, worries Jack because Magnus wants to heal Half-Blood, which is going to take the last of his strength and may actually kill him, and permanently this time. Thankfully he doesn't die, but he does come very close. And it seems like he only dreams when he's about to die, and this is the first time we're actually having a dream where it's not Loki that's talking to him, it's his father Frey. And I love this little dream sequence because it's such a cute little heart-to-heart between Magnus and Frey. They talk about Magnus's mother, and he ends up giving Magnus her ashes, that way he can scatter them like she wanted. And then they talk about Frey's ultimate fate at Ragnarok, which is Doomsday. Sorry, I didn't mention that before. And then Frey gives Magnus a little nudge to tell Annabeth what all is going on, because she'll be there to help him at one point or another. So hopefully we'll see more of Annabeth in the Hammer of Thor. I really hope we do, because I was expecting to see her a lot more than we did. But once Magnus wakes up, they are in Valhalla, and they are going to receive their punishment. But before that can happen, we get the biggest shock, something I never saw coming. X was Odin. Did anyone see that coming? But after this revelation, and Odin's very boring PowerPoint, we learn the real meaning behind Magnus's prophecy. But like every prophecy, it didn't actually mean what they thought it meant. But I love how Odin tells all the Einherja exactly what happened on their quest, and then he rewards Hearth, Blitz, Sam, and Magnus. Blitz gets his own clothing store, which can't wait to see how that's going to turn out. Hearth gets to take lessons from Odin about ruins. Sam gets to be a Valkyrie again, but this time she's under Odin directly, so she gets her own little secret assignments and everything. And Magnus is offered the chance to go back to Midgard. Thankfully, he didn't take that option, but him and his friends do get to travel all 9 of the worlds now. And then after all that happens, Magnus goes to scatter his mother's ashes with Annabeth. And I love how Annabeth and Magnus reconnect over a bet of whose life is weirder. I would have loved to see this exchange in the book. I am so sad that it wasn't in there. The title of the chapter was I Lose a Bet, so we know that Magnus lost on the whole life is weird scale. Still would have loved to seen it. And then we have the epilogue where we learn that Randolph was working for Loki the whole time. I can kind of see where Randolph is coming from. If I was him and I could bring back my wife and children, I would do everything I could to do that. But I also would consider the fact that a lot of people are probably going to die if I do what I'm doing, so I don't know. I mean, I understand why he's doing it, but also I kind of want to shake him and ask him, how stupid are you? Because if Loki gets his way, what is his wife and children coming back to anyways? I mean, the world's going to be destroyed. And something I noted in the epilogue was a piece of jewelry that Loki picked up. Loki picks up this silver hammered pendant that was in Randolph's antique collection. And we learn in this that Thor's hammer is missing. Although, don't tell anybody, Thor forbid. But it made me think, is that Thor's hammer right there? I mean, is it going to be that easy? It's just going to be a necklace sitting in his uncle's house? I haven't read the Hammer of Thor, so I don't know, but that would be very interesting if that happened to be Thor's actual hammer. Although doubtful since Loki was able to lift it. Well, those are my thoughts, opinions, and feelings about Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, the Sword of Summer. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!